Um, so, the next bit is actually from me. Despite introducing things, I'm also here to tell you about stuff. And so, what I'd like to do is take the next 15 minutes or so to talk about time. There's actually quite an interesting link to our first talk here about talking about how we exist within an attention economy in time, and what are we doing with our time. And it's often something that we don't always think about when it comes to attention. Now, this presentation as well is going to require some audience participation. So, are you all ready to join in? Yes? I can't hear you. Are you all ready to join in? Yeah, yes? You have to say things. I can't hear you. Yeah? Yes? Okay. This is going to be very difficult, in the silent world in which we are. We'll give this a go. Okay, so if you've been listening to any of the people that have been talking about attention on stage today and in the rest of the day, you will know that there is a very, very big difference between what people can see and what they do in fact look at. And our friends at Adelaide, who are up on stage in a second, often talk about where's Waldo, or where's Wally as we know him in Europe. And at Lumen we talk about an equally childish approach, just to remember the game of I Spy. So who here has a 5-year-old in the house? Hands up. Yeah. Who here has been a 5-year-old? Yeah, I do like the way that people do put up their hands at that. Yeah, but you will remember the game I Spy with My Little Eye. I Spy with My Little Eye is something beginning with C, and the point of the game is the cat, the C, is in plain view. You could see it, but you might have missed it. You know, just that the cat is viewable, but it is not necessarily looked at, and that is really, that distinction between what you could see and what you do see, the opportunity to see, the OTS and the actual S, that's the essence of what we often talk about at attention providers. But I have a equally childish analogy to give you as well, which is almost as important, which is the game of what's the time, Mr. Wolf? And that's going to be my theme for this afternoon, because looking at stuff is really, really important. And notice this OTS to S thing is a really, really important distinction. Here's Times Square in New York, and there's lots and lots of ads here. They're all viewable. But what you're really interested in is your ad. Did anyone actually look at my ad? Who cares if people could see it? Did anyone look at it? And at Lumen, what we do is we produce lots and lots of data to help you understand how likely your ads are to be looked at. Here's some of our data. We've just recently done some cinema advertising research. We've BVOD, we've done magazines, YouTube, out of home, press, digital, social. There are very big differences in the likelihood to look at ads across different media. The out-of-home stuff, you'll be interested to know, is 100%, because at least in Europe, when you buy out-of-home screens, they have already been pre-vetted to get 100% attention. When you buy the ads, we've done a lot of eye tracking studies with an organisation called Root, which is funded by both advertisers and by the out-of-home companies, to work out which ads are going to get looked at, how likely they are to get looked at. And out-of-home is pretty much the only attention-guaranteed media that's out there. Whenever you're buying out-of-home, you're not buying impressions, you're buying viewed impressions. If only the rest of the industry could catch up with where out-of-home has already got to. But these are very big and important differences. But they are only half the story, which is why I think the other half of the story is what's the time, Mr. Wolf? Now, this is I don't know if this is an English-only game. I did this. I did the I Spy thing in Helsinki a while ago, and I didn't get much response. Perhaps they don't play I Spy in Helsinki. But just to remember what's the time, Mr. Wolf. What you do is you have a load of kids here, and you have one kid over here, and they turn their back, and they say, "What's the time, Mr. Wolf?" And kid one will go, "It's 3 o'clock," and everyone else will move forward 1, 2, 3 steps. And the name of the game, and you can't, you try to catch up to the to the counting kid without her turning round and seeing you, and you lose the game. So we'll try this. Let's see if we can get some audio things. So you have to shout. So I want you to I say, "What's the time, Mr. Wolf?" And I want you to count 1, 2, 3. Should we try this? Yeah? Okay. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? 1, 2, 3. Yeah? Now, the really important thing about this is that time really matters. Time is really, really important, because not only does time matter when you're playing What's Time, Mr. Wolf, but it also matters when you're advertising. Because basically, the higher the count, the closer they come, in this case, to a point of purchase. More attention usually relates to greater memories and greater changes in purchase intent or brand favorability, or indeed sales. Time really, really matters. And we know that there are not just differences in how likely you are to look at things, but and how much time people give to different media. An ad on a social platform or display banners often gets far, far less attention than on cinema. We sort of know that intuitively, but we've got millions of data points to prove this empirically. And the data is remarkably stable. All cinema ads get more attention than all banner ads. There is variation within those things, but not very much. In actual fact, there's far more stability in the media data than anything else. Your attention can be almost not just guaranteed on how likely you are to look, but how long you're going to be looking for as well. There are important differences, as we'll come on to talk about in a second. Differences not just in the volume of attention, but the efficiency of that attention in generating memories or generating outcomes. There are big differences by creative, but while there are differences, there are far more similarities. Different media aren't just noticeable in different ways, but are noticeable for different lengths of time. And this is really, really important. It's also important to note that the distribution in how likely you are to spend 1 or 2 or 3 seconds looking at things differs wildly. The distribution of attention, by that means, is how many people are going to make 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 15 or 20 seconds of attention. And for something like, I think this is magazines, perhaps about 20% of people might look at a magazine ad for 20 seconds, whereas for some digital formats, only 1 or 2% of people will look at the ads for a long time. The averages, those bar charts that I showed you, are just averages. This shows you the distribution. But I've also highlighted that it isn't the same curve every time. So there are lots of media that have a sort of steep decline in that most people are just glancing at, and some people are looking at it. But for media like cinema, almost all the ads will get quite a chunky amount of attention, 20, 30 seconds of attention, which means that they operate in a very, very different way. A cinema ad is a radically different kettle of fish to a poster or to a Facebook ad or what have you. Now, there are differences by time, but these differences also have big impacts in market. So there are differences not just in time, but the effects of that time. We've been doing an awful lot of work with TEEDS at the moment. It's going to see Phil Sumner from TEEDS here. This comes from a forthcoming report that will be coming out, being published by TEEDS, I think next week, I hope. But what we've done is we've analysed 16 different campaigns for 14 different advertisers, all of whom had brand lift studies associated with that. And what we find is consistently, the longer people are predicted to have looked at an ad, the more likely they are to either remember it, either from ad recall or spontaneous brand awareness. Certainly when it comes to prompted brand awareness, big differences by familiarity and favorability and consideration and purchase intent. Simply looking at ads is important. It's a very, very good thing to get right, because if you ignore the ad entirely, it definitely can't work. But it's also really important to think about how long people are looking at these ads for, because time really does make a difference. Now this is all for TEEDS advertising. We have similar sorts of data for there are many other good rich media format owners out there, but also for social media networks and for programmatic displays, that simply looking at things is really, really important, but it isn't the only thing. It's the time you spend. And that's very, very important when it comes to media planning. Because, of course, really, the biggest differences between most media are not whether or not they get noticed, but how long they get noticed for. That's the really crucial piece of information. But it isn't just about time, because it isn't a straight line. What we find is that, and this data is from the well, it's actually a schematic thing, because the data is far too valuable to share here. But this is the sort of data that the guys at Dentsu have, which is that there's a curve here. The longer people look at things for, not just it's a viewable time, but actually looking at things for, the more likely they are to remember things. And there is this sort of, it isn't a straight line. There's a curve here that makes a big difference. But it isn't just one curve, because different media are more or less efficient at converting attention into recall. So what we find is that when it comes to video advertising, if you choose to look at an ad, if you're not forced to, but you're given the option, but you choose to look at the ad, the attention converts into memory far more effectively than when you are forced to look at the ad. So one of the things that many of you will have remembered from previous times is that certainly for YouTube advertising, YouTube is a fantastic place to advertise. It's a great medium. But there is one bit of a YouTube ad that gets a lot more attention than any other bit of the YouTube ad. What do you think that might be? The lady in red there, the skip button, and you're absolutely right. Just because you're looking at the screen doesn't necessarily mean you're always looking at the bit of the ad that is going to really drive the business results. So there are different levels of sort of attentional efficiency. Time is always important, but it's not an entirely straight line when it comes to those things. And it isn't just about the media either, because I've said, we've just been talking about the use of AI for creative optimization. We notice radical differences in the ability of ads to generate attention and recall based on creative. Sorry, before I'll get on to that, but the thing I wanted to say here was before, this is a sort of a general curve there. We have a predictive model of attention that takes all our data and turns it into an algorithm. We've also developed a specific algorithm just for Dentsu, using all of this extra data to make sure that they have access to this attention and recall model when they're buying stuff programmatically. Within their model, and it's quite difficult because it's 7 or 8 factors in the model and there's only 2 dimensions on the screen. So unless we come up with eight-dimension screen soon. I can't show you all of this. But what we find is that viewable time is by far the biggest factor. It changes from format to format and from domain to domain. It's, like I say, it's a complicated piece of maths there. But whatever the piece of maths, viewable time and indeed the duration of the ad, how long it plays for if it's a video ad, are enormous drivers in helping us understand if people are going to look at things, how long they're going to look at things for, and how this relates to recall. Making sure that we can have both of these things is tremendously important and is something that we can reliably predict, but only up to a point. Because there are a whole lot of other factors as well. I don't want to, we've got a lot of the story here, but not the whole thing. And one of the most important factors, and something that we'll be hearing an awful lot about from System 1, as we just heard from the guys at Dragonfly, is about creative. I started my career at DDB. I was a planner there for about 15 years in London and in New York and in Mumbai. And wherever I went and wherever I did my job, there was always the hope that you were going to get an unfair share of attention. You were going to get more than the media value. That was the point of an ad agency. Otherwise, you just put an ad with a logo and you wouldn't have to have any creative at all. So the creative really does make a difference. And it is quite important to try and understand, even within the same format, even within the same space on the page, you get radically different levels of attention here. Between sort of a plain ad and perhaps a more interactive, optimized ad there, or between the red ad or the blue ad, or between the ad with the girl or the ad with the boy in situ. So we know from the work that we've been doing that attention leads to outcomes and sales. And we'll have Rob Hall from Playground XYZ talking about that. We've got Mark Gulderman, one of the original attention, one of the founders of the Attention Council with Lumen and with Amplified Intelligence. And I'm sure he's going to be talking to you as well about the importance of attention in driving outcomes. And we are all united in that message. And I'm really into, I'm just, our time at MadFest has seen the entire economy of attention grow. It's great to see all of these great companies saying the same thing. And so we're really pleased about the consistency there. What we think is also important, is to make sure that when we're thinking about it, we understand why this is working. So we think it's really important that you should be asking, what's the time, at least of the model, what's the time estimate amidst the wall? We think you should be thinking about how does time fit into your predictive model? And crucially, how other factors, such as creative, can add to that. The attention economy is growing in scope and scale and authority. I'm really pleased to have Mark coming up now with the guys from Audi to talk about the success that they've had. We'll have Rob from Playground XYZ. Soon I'm sure we'll have Karen Nelson-Field from Amplified Intelligence. We'll have the whole set. In all our debates, though, we should be thinking about the broader understanding of attention that gets us from attention to outcomes. So thank you very much for your time, and I think I've done an introduction for Mark and the guys, so thank you very much, guys.